Last week, me and some coworkers from Burger King had a camping trip near Tennessee in Kentucky. There were many of us. Me, my good friend Kevin, his girlfriend Lexi, and some other friends from work. We were a group of 12 in total. We set up our camp by a stream. On the opposite side of the stream, there was a really steep cliff, almost straight up, and behind that, there was a lake where you pay to fish. We turned our cars into makeshift tents. We were all having a good time, making jokes, and, to be honest, smoking some pot until we got sleepy. I went to sleep, but later, I woke up because I needed to go to the bathroom. When I checked the time, it was 3 a.m. I walked over the bridge that went to the pay lake, did what I needed to do, and stood there for a bit because the view was so nice. But while I was looking around, I saw something that seemed like a person walking near the edge of the woods, not too far away. So I kept an eye on them, kind of hiding behind the building near the pay lake. After a couple of minutes, I heard someone from our camping spot scream really loud. The sound was sudden and kind of scary, which gave me the shivers. I ran back really fast. On the bridge between me and the camp, there was the scariest thing I've ever seen. It was the last thing I thought I'd come across. It looked like an animal, kinda like a person. The creature was bigger and taller than me when I stand up. I'm 6'3", but this thing was a few inches taller, and its body was thin and strong. The creature had brown fur, claws, and a snout like a German shepherd. Its eyes were small and black. It stood there looking at me for what felt like a really long time. Right before it ran away into the woods, I swear it smiled at me. Luckily, it didn't attack. It yelped and didn't go into the woods, because Kevin threw a big rock at its head and hit it. Both of us walked back to camp, really scared and shaking. I hopped in my truck and locked the doors. I didn't sleep at all that night. I kept thinking about what that thing could be, trying to compare it to animals I know, but it didn't match anything. Another part of me kept worrying. What if it comes back? Maybe we should all just go. I'm pretty sure I saw that thing at the top of the cliff on the other side of the creek, with its yellow, glowing eyes staring at me. When morning came, the creature was gone. We all gathered together and tried to make the best of things. Sean was the first to talk. He said he and Tia got woken up because something was pushing down on the front of their car. When they looked, they saw that same creature sitting and crouching on their car hood. After a while, it left Shan's car and seemed to walk away. That's when they heard Maddie screaming. Maddie said she was in Eric's truck with him. Eric had the window on his side down a little bit, just enough for someone to put their hand through. Maddie was using her phone when she noticed something in the corner of her eye. She shined her phone light on it and screamed when she saw a hairy, clawed hand reaching through the window. She said when she screamed, the hand quickly pulled back, and she heard loud footsteps going away from the camp. Her scream scared everyone, including Eric, and woke up everyone else too. That's when I started running back, and that's when I met the thing on the bridge. A little later, when Kevin saw I wasn't in my truck, he came to find me and saw the thing standing in front of me on the bridge. He said he was sure the creature seemed ready to attack. So, he did the only thing he could think of. He grabbed a big rock and threw it at the animal. I still have bad dreams about that thing being outside my window at night, especially since I don't live too far from where we camped that night. I heard Sean can't sleep well after seeing that thing, and Maddie is still really scared. As for me, I wish I knew what it was, and I try not to think about what might have happened if Kevin wasn't there to stop it. I love hiking a lot. Last year, I went on a special hiking trip to northern Canada with my friends. We spent a whole week there. When I was telling this story to one of my friends last week, they said it was unique and suggested that I share it. I think they might be right because there are probably many people with interesting experiences out there. So my friends and I were in the northern part of Canada. I won't say exactly where because I worry about internet safety. Anyway, we were traveling in a big truck, the 5 of us together. The back of the truck had a cover on top, and there was a way to crawl through to the front. It was like a little passage. We were in a truck that's usually for carrying skis, but we didn't have any. It was a clear winter night, and me and my friends were trying to play Magic the Gathering in the back. We thought it would be funny, a bunch of people in the middle of nowhere doing the nerdiest thing. We had a few beers and kept going. It was a really good time. One of my friends suddenly shouted to look at something. He loved nature and wanted us to help him figure out what we were seeing. My spouse and I stopped our card game and turned to see what he was excited about. Through the windows, we could see the shape of a moose or elk far away. The shape disappeared quickly as we kept driving. It was pretty cool to see that animal. It was the first exciting thing we found on the trip. It was only the second day, and we planned to camp on Wednesday, then head back to civilization the next week. A few hours later, Dave stopped the car to sleep because most of us were really tired. Except for me, as I still had work to do, even though I was technically on vacation. My job needed me to keep working, or, well, I couldn't really stop. I'm not sure if it was a personal thing or some pride to keep working, but I kept on anyway. I was working, and about 20 minutes later, I heard his voice just a bit over the music. I took off my headphones and looked away from the laptop. He was sleeping. Actually, everyone in the room was asleep. I checked outside the window, but there was no one there. There were some trees, and their shadows were barely visible in the moonlight. I travel a lot, and every sound is important to me. Whether it's a quiet talk in the airport or a bird's call in a small town, I find it all useful. I kept working, but this time without music. After about 5 minutes, my spouse woke up. She looked at me and asked to keep it down. I told her I had been really quiet and decided to drive for a while since I was done taking notes for the moment. I started the car and quickly checked to make sure everyone was inside. Everyone was there, so I began driving. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw that deer again, but this time I could only see the antlers because its head was down and the body was behind a tree. I remember it clearly because it was lit by the moon. Even though I thought it was cool to see the deer, I kept driving on the snowy ground. The next day, we were almost at our camping spot. We saw that horned animal a few more times too. It could have been different animals, and we didn't really mind. I thought it was a bit strange, but I didn't worry too much because I usually don't believe in unusual things. That night, we set up camp, which meant putting together the rooftop tent. It was a bit tricky, like a puzzle, and my friend Dave, who owned the truck, had made it. He was really into camping, more than the rest of us. My friend slept in the tent, and my spouse and I got the truck bed. It was kind of a way to show respect, and also because the truck tent seemed really comfortable. That night, feeling a bit excited, I decided to take a walk. My spouse was tired and wanted to sleep. I brought my machete, but it was just for cutting plants. It was no problem for the occasional pine branch. After a while, I heard my spouse calling my name. I could still see the truck lights from a distance. So, I started walking back to the truck. But then I realized the voice wasn't coming from the truck. I stopped and listened, feeling confused. I noticed her voice was the same every time, like a repeating sound. This scared me a lot. I hurried back to the truck and started it, even though you're not supposed to run the truck with the tent on top. But it was tightly secured, and the path was clear, so I wasn't worried about the tent falling off. Terrified and driving fast, I saw this deer thing running towards the truck, keeping up somehow. It made a terrible scream that I can't even describe. I started crying while the guy banged on the truck roof, telling me to stop. I crossed a stream, and the bumpy rocks probably damaged my friend's truck, not to mention my friends inside. All of a sudden, I heard 3 gunshots. Then, it was quiet. After 5 more minutes of driving, I stopped in a clearing. The strange creature wasn't following us anymore. My friends got out, packed up the tent, and told me to just drive. When I looked back, my spouse was staring out the window. She turned to me, her face covered in tears. She was really scared. She didn't like scary movies, and they always made her cry and feel frightened. I drove on, and my friend and I didn't say anything for the next 4 hours until the sun came up. That morning, we finally stopped and talked about what had happened. I shared my part of the story. None of us really knew what happened, but my friend Sean suggested it might have been a moose with rabies or something. We all thought weird animal stuff happened sometimes. However, we couldn't figure out how it could run so fast and why its face seemed messed up, as my friends described it. None of us had a clear answer, so we decided to cut our trip short. Instead of taking the scary scenic route, we went through a couple of villages on our way back. The rest of the trip was fun, and we met some friendly people. We didn't ask anyone else about the strange thing because we figured they wouldn't know either. At least, I never bothered to ask. And if the others knew, they never told us what they found out. Honestly, I don't believe the rabies story. It doesn't explain why I heard my spouse's voice in the woods, away from where she was, repeating the exact same sound over and over. Next time you go into the woods, make sure to bring a flashlight and something to protect yourself. You never know what might be waiting, but I'm sure you can't outrun it. Trying to throw a rock at it will probably just make it angrier. I'm Alan, a 16-year-old guy who considers himself pretty logical. I've always been aware of my senses, and, I guess, a little paranoid. I believe these traits might have saved me in a situation I'm about to share. When I was around 15, my friend, whom we'll call Jack, and I were biking through a narrow, desolate road in the less-known areas of Colorado. I won't reveal the exact location, but the road was like those you'd find in more deserted places. Small, narrow, mainly dirt-covered, with a thickening tree line along the sides. Biking on these roads always gave us a bit of a creepy feeling, but that just added a little more excitement to the ride. But on that day, we never thought that something like this could happen to regular people like us. Well, I guess no one expects something like this to happen. We had been biking for about 2 hours, stopping now and then to drink water or have some snacks we brought along, just the usual stuff. During our short breaks, nothing usually happened. But on this particular day, we didn't stop too often, because we heard strange noises around us. After almost 3 hours of riding, we had to take a break. So we found a big log to park our bikes, and we sat down to catch our breath. Then, after about 5 minutes, we heard what seemed like a woman screaming. From what I could tell, it was at least 400 yards away to the left. 2 15-year-old boys like us wanted to show our tough sides, so we decided to check it out. We walked around for about 20 minutes, but found nothing. When we got back, we saw our bikes were totally wrecked. The chain was in pieces, the tires were cut, and the gear shift was torn off the handlebars. My stomach sank, and I felt almost sick. Then I thought, maybe it was just some mean person passing by. But in less than a minute of looking around, we heard something like a big piece of wood smashing against a tree trunk. It was really loud and sudden, but I slowly turned around and saw something that looked like a creature. It was at least 6 feet tall, covered in hair all over its body. It had a big snout that went down to its chest and strange wire-like things on its chin. It had 2 small, black, beady eyes and weird, large, curled horns on top of its head. My friend and I didn't waste any time. We both ran as fast as we could, making sharp turns to confuse the creature and make sure it wasn't following us. We're not sure if it chased us, but as soon as we started running, it made 2 of the strangest and creepiest sounds I've ever heard. They kinda sounded like a mix of a pig and an eagle. I know it sounds strange, but it was really scary. While we were running, we reached a nearby road and called my dad to come pick us up fast. We didn't tell him the whole story. We just said our bikes got stolen when we went to use the bathroom. Even now, I still don't know what I saw, and I don't go hiking or biking on quiet trails as much. I stick to places with more people around. This is not a ghost story. I want to tell you about scary things that can happen to people, but it's a story I heard from someone else. I listened to it on a radio show in the 90s, and unfortunately, I don't have a recording of it. Anyway, they were talking to a person who rescues people in the mountains, and he was really good at his job. He explained that climbing big mountains like Everest is dangerous. There are many things that can go wrong, like slipping, avalanches, and falling into deep cracks in the ice. If you fall into one of these cracks, it's really bad. Now, let me try to remember what he said on the radio show. From the helicopter, we can see people who are in trouble and need help. But the scariest part of our job is when someone falls into a place on the mountain that's really hard to reach. There isn't much we can do for them. If you think about landing a helicopter to help them, you'll see it's not always simple. Maybe nowadays, with new technology, it's easier. But when I used to do search and rescue, landing or rescuing in certain parts of the mountains was just not possible. In certain situations, we search and rescue officers might see people below, waving and yelling for help. It's really tough because sometimes we can't do anything to help them. We have to look at them in the deep cracks and know we can't rescue them. It's really hard, emotionally. So, I'm sorry to say, if you ever find yourself in that situation, with a helicopter circling above, and you're yelling as loud as you can to get our attention, it might be really frustrating, because we might not be able to hear you. We heard you and saw you, but we can't help. We can't do anything, or even let you know we see you. Unfortunately, if you're in those situations, it means you're already gone. I might even look at you, but all I see is someone who won't make it. And just like that, the call ended on a really serious and scary note. It gave me shivers when I heard that. This happened in June or July this year. My cousin and I were both 13 years old, and we live in Louisiana. We decided to ride my golf cart around the neighborhood, something we always do when she visits. But just going around in circles got boring. So, we stopped near a dry ditch on the road where my house is. I parked the golf cart at the end of my neighbor's driveway, a place that already made us feel a bit uneasy. We once heard what sounded like screaming from their yard. Anyway, we got out of the golf cart and looked down the ditch to see if there was anything interesting. I saw some old planks of wood along the side of the ditch, about 6 feet in. That got us interested, so we jumped in. As we walked, we heard some rustling beside us, but we didn't think much of it. It could have been a deer or a raccoon or something. We walked about 30 feet into the ditch and saw an open area. We wanted to go to the other side, so we kept going until we reached a wet part of the ditch. It was full of mosquitoes, so we decided to stop our walk and go back home before it got dark. Both my cousin and I were surprised at how big the ditch was, and I told her sister about it. The next day, we went back to the place we called the grotto. We wore shoes made for outside to walk better. Once we got in, we heard the rustling again, but this time it was closer and louder. We walked through the open area, being careful and looking around, especially because it was close to our strange neighbor's house. When we got through the wet part, we climbed out of the ditch and into the woods where the sound was coming from. We were curious, even if it wasn't the smartest thing to do. It felt like every step we took, spiders would crawl out from under the leaves, like in a scary movie. We found a bag of marijuana hidden in a spot, along with some empty glass bottles and old torn-up shoes. When I saw those shoes, I wanted to leave quickly, but my cousin wanted to keep looking around. We came across a fallen tree covered in fresh trash. That's when I decided to head back to the ditch. But then, my cousin yelled for me. She found something. I rushed back to where she was, and she pointed to a pile of bones. We thought they might be from a small kid, but we didn't find the skull, so they could have been animal bones too. When you're scared like that, you always think the worst. We walked closer to check the bones, but then we heard someone stomping around us, and it scared us both. We turned toward the noise, and what we saw was really scary. There was a man with long, dirty hair and bloody fingernails, crouched down like an animal. Luckily, he ran away from us. It seemed like we accidentally found the place he was using for something, but oddly, he stopped behind a tree and started staring at us. We ran back to the golf cart, really scared about what might have happened. To this day, I never go down the road with the ditch we explored. My cousin and I never talked about what happened, and we never told anyone.